The tension in the packed courthouse was electric. The legendary 76-year-old actor, Christopher Walken, known for his iconic voice and commanding presence, sat behind his mahogany bench, his eyes burning with intensity. Across the room, American actor Jonathan Roumie, his sharp suit impeccable, stood tall, his face calm, exuding an aura of quiet confidence. This wasn't just any day in court. This was a historic moment about to unfold. The case began as a simple civil matter, but the moment Roumie stepped into the witness stand, everything changed. Walken, who had been watching Roumie's rise in Hollywood and the political world, was far from impressed. "So you think you can just waltz into my courtroom and disrespect the process because you've made a name for yourself?" Walken's voice boomed, echoing through the room. The courtroom fell silent, cameras already recording. Everyone knew this was about to be the confrontation of the year, but Jonathan Roumie didn't flinch. His gaze met Walken's with unwavering confidence, a look that said he was ready for anything. "Your Honor," Roumie began, his voice calm but firm, "I'm here to provide testimony as requested by the court, and I will do so with the respect this process deserves." Walken's face darkened. "Respect?" he scoffed. "You young people today think you can demand respect without earning it. Well, not in my court." Walken's words rang out, causing a stir in the gallery. The tension in the room was palpable. Roumie, however, stood unshaken. "With all due respect, Your Honor, I've earned my respect through years of dedication and hard work, and I won't allow anyone to belittle me or my office just because they think their position gives them the right to do so," Roumie responded, his voice carrying the weight of his words. Walken's fury escalated. "You think your fancy title gives you power here?" His voice thundered. "In my courtroom, I'm the one in charge." But Roumie remained composed, his eyes locked on Walken's. "Respect is earned, not demanded, Your Honor. I'm simply here to do my duty, not to engage in petty power struggles." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Walken, now visibly frustrated, leaned forward, his posture aggressive. "You think you can stand here and lecture me?" he snarled. But Roumie, without missing a beat, responded with a calm, controlled voice. "I'm not lecturing you, Your Honor. I'm simply stating the truth." The courtroom was electric now, as Roumie's words hung in the air. The tension shifted. What had begun as a heated exchange between a veteran judge and a rising star in Hollywood was now a battle of wills, with Roumie's composure and conviction slowly turning the tide. Then, in one of the most pivotal moments of the encounter, Roumie spoke with piercing clarity. "I didn't come here to challenge your authority, but I will not allow anyone to intimidate me, regardless of their position. You may have a booming voice, Your Honor, but true authority comes from respect, not fear." Walken's face was pale now. For the first time, it seemed like he had lost control of the situation. His earlier outbursts had backfired. The room was watching, captivated by the power of Roumie's calm and rational response. Walken, realizing the gravity of his miscalculation, took a deep breath. "You're right, Mr. Roumie," he admitted, his voice now quieter, more reflective. "I've let my temper get the best of me. I apologize." The apology sent ripples through the courtroom. Roumie's calmness had not only won the confrontation, but it had changed the dynamic of the entire courtroom. Walken, once the dominant figure, now seemed humbled by Roumie's poise and strength. As the trial continued, Roumie's testimony went smoothly, and his professionalism stood in stark contrast to Walken's earlier outbursts. Outside the courthouse, the confrontation went viral, with people praising Roumie's grace under pressure. What began as a simple legal matter had turned into a landmark moment in legal history. Roumie's ability to stand firm, even in the face of Walken's intimidating authority, proved that true leadership is not about volume or power, but about integrity, preparation, and the courage to stand up for what is right. This moment would be remembered for years to come as a defining example of how the new generation of leaders handles adversity, proving that power no longer comes from dominance, but from respect and principle. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Behind his mahogany bench, the 76-year-old actor Christopher Walken, known for his eccentric and commanding presence, sat, his piercing gaze locked on the audience, radiating authority. Across from him, standing tall and poised, was Jonathan Roumie, his sharp suit and composed demeanor drawing everyone's attention. The case seemed like a routine civil matter, but the moment Roumie stepped up to testify, the atmosphere changed. Walken, who had seen Roumie's popular TV moments, wasn't impressed. The tension in the air was palpable. Walken's voice boomed across the room. "Mr. Roumie, just because you've had your fair share of screen time doesn't mean you get to come into my courtroom and disrespect the process, he said, his words reverberating through the room like thunder. The gallery fell silent, cameras already rolling, but Jonathan Roumie didn't flinch. His calm, steady gaze met Walken's fiery stare, unfazed by the old-school judge's intimidation tactics. "Your Honor," Roumie began, his voice steady and unwavering, "I'm here to testify as requested by the court, and I will do so with the respect this process demands." Walken's expression hardened. "Respect?" he scoffed. "You think just because you've got some fancy title you can come in here and take control?" His voice shook the room. Roumie stood tall, his voice cutting through the tension. "I've earned my respect through hard work and dedication, Your Honor. I'm here to fulfill my civic duty, not to play by outdated rules." Walken, now visibly agitated, leaned in. "You think your status makes you special in my court? In here, I am the one who commands respect." His voice was filled with authority, attempting to impose fear. But Roumie didn't budge. "Respect is earned, not demanded, Your Honor. I'll follow all the proper procedures, but I won't allow anyone to belittle me or my position just because they think they have the upper hand." The courtroom was electric now. Walken, usually the one who dictated the space, was suddenly losing control. Roumie's calm defiance shifted the entire energy in the room. Walken was furious, his face reddening. "I've been doing this for years," he yelled, "and I won't let anyone challenge me." But Roumie remained composed, his voice clear and powerful. "What I'm challenging, Your Honor, is the notion that respect can be demanded through volume and intimidation. Leadership comes from character, competence, and professionalism, not fear and aggression." The room was silent for a moment as Walken's outburst hung in the air. He was stunned, taken aback by Roumie's measured words. In the midst of the silence, Walken took a deep breath, the weight of his previous words sinking in. "You're right," he said, his voice softer, lacking the authority it had earlier. "I apologize for my outburst, Mr. Roumie." Roumie, unshaken, nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Honor." The courtroom was left in awe. What had started as a power struggle between an old-school judge and a rising star had shifted completely. Roumie's poised and reasoned response had turned the tide, leaving Walken to reconsider his approach. The incident quickly became the talk of the town. Videos of the confrontation went viral, with millions applauding Roumie for his calmness under pressure. People on social media praised him for standing his ground without raising his voice, showing that real power comes from character and poise, not dominance. In the aftermath, Walken appeared humbled by the encounter. For the first time in years, he had been outmaneuvered, and it had been by someone younger and seemingly less imposing. His authority was no longer unquestioned. As for Roumie, the moment solidified his place not only as a rising actor, but as a leader in the making. His graceful handling of Walken's aggression would be remembered as an example of how the new generation of leaders, grounded in integrity, competence, and calm, would reshape leadership for years to come. The courtroom buzzed with electricity. Behind the bench sat Christopher Walken, the 76-year-old legendary actor, known for his unique delivery and intense presence. His piercing gaze swept the room, exuding authority. Across the room stood Jonathan Roumie, his posture straight and confident, ready to face the seasoned actor-turned-judge. The case seemed straightforward at first, but the moment Roumie stepped onto the witness stand, the atmosphere shifted. Walken, who had seen Roumie's viral moments and sharp wit in various political debates, wasn't impressed. His commanding voice echoed through the room. "Mr. Roumie, you think just because you've played a role in front of millions, you can come into my courtroom and disrespect the process?" His words crashed like thunder against the walls of the courthouse. The packed gallery went silent, phones out, sensing they were about to witness a historic confrontation. Jonathan Roumie didn't flinch. His gaze met Walken's with calm confidence, standing firm. "Your Honor," he began, his voice clear and composed, "I'm here to give testimony as requested by the court, and I will do so respectfully." Walken's face darkened, his tone sharp. "In my courtroom, you're just a witness, Mr. Roumie. I don't care what you do outside these walls." His voice boomed across the room, causing several people in the gallery to shift uneasily in their seats. But Roumie stood his ground, his eyes never leaving Walken's. Walken's voice took on an angry edge. "You think your little viral moments mean something here? You come in with all your titles and think you deserve special treatment? In my court, I'm the one in charge." His words were laced with contempt, his imposing figure looming over the bench. Roumie's calmness only seemed to infuriate Walken further. "Your Honor, I've earned my respect by working hard, practicing law, and serving my community. I'm simply here to do my civic duty, Roumie responded, unshaken. Walken stood from his bench, towering over the room. His voice boomed even louder now. I've seen your type before, he sneered. Young, cocky, thinking they can waltz in and do whatever they want. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Roumie. You'll follow my rules in here. The gallery began to murmur, a few gasping at the judge's aggressive tone. Roumie, however, remained poised. I am following the rules, Your Honor, he said calmly. I'm here to provide testimony, as I've been asked. Walken's face turned red, his anger escalating. Are you questioning my judgment? He roared, his voice shaking the courtroom. If you are, you can walk yourself right out that door. The room was now on edge. Court reporters later remarked they'd never seen Walken so agitated before even hearing from the witness. Roumie's supporters in the gallery were recording on their phones, sensing something monumental was about to unfold. Roumie took a deep breath, his voice steady as he responded. With all due respect, Your Honor, I'm not here to challenge your authority, but I will not be belittled or intimidated. I'm here to do what I was called to do, and I will do it with respect for this process. A hush fell over the room. Walken, stunned by the calm yet firm response, seemed to pause for a moment. His usual domineering presence had been met with a quiet strength that he hadn't anticipated. For the first time, Walken's voice wavered. I apologize, he said, a rare admission of defeat. You're right, Mr. Roumie. I've been out of line. The tension in the room evaporated. Roumie's calmness had won the day, and Walken, though initially the authority, had backed down. As the trial continued, Roumie's testimony flowed smoothly, his professionalism standing in stark contrast to Walken's earlier aggression. The moment would go viral, the internet buzzing with praise for Roumie's ability to stand his ground without resorting to anger. The incident became a defining example of how leadership could be exercised with respect, poise, and preparation, rather than through intimidation and volume. Walken, in the days following, reflected on the encounter. He admitted in interviews that he had learned something important from Roumie's approach. Real authority comes from wisdom and understanding, not from shouting or imposing fear. What had started as a routine case had become a symbol of the changing face of leadership. Roumie, through his calm and calculated response, had shown that true strength lies in knowing when to stand firm and when to let wisdom guide the way. For Walken, it was a lesson in humility, one that reshaped his approach to leadership from that moment on. The courtroom was electric with tension. Behind his mahogany bench, Christopher Walken, the 76-year-old actor known for his commanding presence and intense delivery, sat, his gaze sharp and calculating. Across the room stood Jonathan Roumie, poised and confident in a sharp suit, ready to face off with the seasoned actor turned judge. What began as a simple case was about to escalate into a battle of personalities and principles. Walken had watched Roumie's viral moments, his quick wit on social media, and his rise to prominence. The moment Roumie stepped up to testify, Walken's temper flared. Mr. Roumie, Walken's voice boomed, sending a wave of tension through the courtroom. You think you can come into my courtroom, throwing around titles and acting like you're special? You'll follow my rules here. His words echoed like thunder, his power evident, but Roumie didn't flinch. Roumie's calm voice broke the silence, clear and unwavering. Your Honor, he began, I'm here to provide the testimony I was called to give, and I will do so with the respect this process deserves. Walken's eyes narrowed, his voice growing louder. Respect? You think your fancy title gives you some sort of special privilege in my court? You young people today think you can waltz in and demand respect without earning it, he shouted, his words vibrating in the air. Roumie didn't flinch, his gaze steady as he met Walken's aggression. I've earned my respect through years of practice and service to the people, Your Honor, Roumie calmly responded. I'm here to do my civic duty, not to engage in your intimidation. The tension in the room intensified. Walken rose from his bench, towering over the proceedings with his imposing figure. In my courtroom, he declared, I'm the one in charge, and you'll show me respect. Roumie stood firm, not backing down but maintaining composure. Respect is not something you get by yelling at people, Your Honor, Roumie said, his voice filling the room. It's earned through competence, professionalism, and mutual respect for the process. Walken's face turned red, clearly irritated by Roumie's response. He was used to dominating every space he entered, but this was different. This was no ordinary witness. Roumie had faced far worse confrontations and had come out stronger. The courtroom could feel it, the shift in power. As Walken struggled to find his words, Roumie took a deep breath and stood from the witness chair slowly. His posture was perfect, his voice calm but commanding. Your Honor, I came here today to do exactly what the court requested, provide character testimony. I cleared my schedule, traveled here, and showed respect for this process. What I won't accept is being berated or disrespected simply because you think your position grants you the right to do so. The entire courtroom hung on every word. Phones were now openly recording, capturing what was becoming an extraordinary moment in legal history. Walken, stunned and speechless, was forced to confront the truth of Roumie's words. You want to talk about respect? Roumie's voice rang out, powerful and clear. Let me tell you about respect. Respect isn't earned by intimidation or volume. It's earned by listening, by doing your job with integrity, and by treating people with dignity, regardless of their position. Walken's face was a mix of shock and anger. For the first time, he found himself on the back foot. Roumie wasn't backing down, and for the first time in the confrontation, Walken seemed at a loss for words. The audience was mesmerized. Several people leaned forward, eager to capture every word. Roumie's composed defiance had shifted the entire power dynamic in the room. The young generation of leaders, not backing down from the old-school authority, had made its mark. After a long pause, Walken, realizing his loss of control, finally spoke. His voice, no longer booming, was quieter, almost apologetic. You're right, Mr. Roumie, he said, visibly humbled. I apologize. The room was stunned. Walken had done the unthinkable, admitting fault, something many in the courtroom thought was impossible. Roumie, with a calm nod, accepted the apology, maintaining his professionalism. As the trial continued, Roumie's testimony went without further incident. His ability to stand his ground with grace and dignity had won over the room, and Walken, once the towering authority figure, was left to reflect on the encounter. Outside the courtroom, the story of the confrontation went viral, the world watching as Roumie's calm strength reshaped the narrative of leadership and respect. What had started as a simple legal case had turned into a symbol of the changing nature of leadership. Jonathan Roumie's ability to stand up to intimidation with poise and authority had turned the tables, not just in the courtroom, but in the hearts of those watching. Walken, once the dominant figure, was forced to reconsider his approach to power and respect. The moment became a defining example of how leadership would evolve in the coming years, not through dominance and volume, but through preparation, integrity, and the ability to stand firm when faced with adversity. The atmosphere in the packed courtroom was electric. Christopher Walken, the 76-year-old actor known for his booming voice and dramatic presence, sat behind his mahogany bench. His intense gaze cut through the room, setting the stage for a monumental clash. Across from him stood Jonathan Roumie, composed and dignified, his sharp suit and calm demeanor, making him a striking contrast to the seasoned judge. The case had started as a simple civil matter, but the moment Roumie stepped up to testify, everything changed. Walken, who had seen Roumie's viral moments and political presence, was already irritated. Mr. Roumie, Walken's voice boomed, shaking the courtroom. You think just because you've made a name for yourself, you can walk into my courtroom and disrespect the process? Roumie didn't flinch. His voice, steady and unwavering, filled the room. Your Honor, I'm here to provide the testimony I was called to give, and I will do so with the utmost respect for this process. Walken's face darkened. Respect? You think your fancy title means anything in my court? You think you deserve special treatment? Not in here. His voice grew louder, his authority attempting to assert dominance. But Roumie, standing tall and unshaken, replied with controlled strength. I've earned my respect through years of practice and by serving the people, Your Honor. I'm here to do my civic duty. Walken stood up from his bench, towering over the proceedings. In my courtroom, you follow my rules, Mr. Roumie. I don't care what title you hold outside these walls. His words were harsh, his body language meant to intimidate. Roumie's response was calm and powerful. Respect is not something that can be demanded, Your Honor. It's earned through competence and professionalism. The room could feel the tension rising. The power dynamic was shifting. Roumie's composed defiance was challenging Walken's old-school, intimidating approach. Walken, now furious, bellowed, I've seen your type before. Young, arrogant, thinking the rules don't apply. You'll show me respect in my court. But Roumie remained unflinching, his voice calm and clear. I will not allow anyone to yell at me or treat me with disrespect, no matter their position. Respect is something you show others, not demand from them. The energy in the room shifted. Walken, once the dominant figure, seemed unsettled. The crowd, sensing a turning point, began to quietly record the moment. Roumie's voice grew stronger, filling every corner of the room. Respect means treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their age, race, or gender. It means listening to testimony without prejudgment. It means using your position to seek justice, not to inflate your own ego. Walken's face turned red as he tried to regain control, but for the first time his authority was slipping. Roumie's calm confidence had shifted the power dynamics in the room. The audience, captivated, leaned forward, hanging on every word. Walken opened his mouth to speak but was silenced by Roumie's piercing gaze. Roumie continued, unwavering. I've been subjected to disrespect, just like many others. I'm speaking for those who have been intimidated and silenced by figures who confuse power with character. Roumie's words hit the courtroom like a thunderclap. The gallery was on edge, some nodding in agreement, others recording every second of what was unfolding. Walken, visibly taken aback, stood speechless. Roumie then reached into his briefcase, pulling out a folder, his movements slow and deliberate. Since you've questioned my qualifications, Your Honor, I'd like to share something with you. He opened the folder with precision. These are letters from judges across Texas, attesting to my legal knowledge and my respect for the process. Would you like me to read them? Walken's face went pale. The courtroom was silent as Roumie read the glowing testimonials from respected judges, each one reinforcing his professionalism and integrity. Should I continue, Your Honor? Roumie asked, his calm voice a stark contrast to the intense heat that had filled the room moments earlier. Walken, now realizing the magnitude of his miscalculation, sank back into his chair. The wind knocked out of him. The power in the room had shifted entirely. The silence was deafening. Walken for the first time found himself humbled. The truth is, Roumie continued, his voice gentle but unwavering, I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. I came to do my job and serve my community. But I will not let anyone treat me with disrespect just because they think their position shields them from accountability. The courtroom erupted. The audience, unable to contain their admiration for Roumie's grace under pressure, applauded. Phones recorded every moment, capturing what would go down in history as one of the most powerful demonstrations of leadership under fire. Judge Walken sat in stunned silence, realizing he had not only been outmaneuvered, but also educated. The room buzzed with a new energy. Respect, calm, and intelligence had won the day. Roumie's handling of the situation became a textbook example of true leadership, not through intimidation and volume, but through integrity, preparation, and quiet strength. His actions reshaped how authority and leadership were viewed in that courtroom and beyond. For years to come, the event would be talked about as a defining moment for both Roumie and the legal world. It was a moment where a new kind of leadership, one that valued competence and dignity, stood tall and showed everyone what true authority looked like. Christopher Walken, the legendary actor turned judge, cleared his throat several times before speaking again. His voice, which had boomed with authority just moments before, now seemed quieter, lacking the overwhelming power he had displayed earlier. Mr. Roumie, he began, stumbling slightly over his words, please continue with your testimony. The change in his tone was so striking that several people in the gallery exchanged surprised glances. This was the same man who had been shouting and berating Roumie moments before, now speaking almost with a sense of deference. Roumie nodded graciously and proceeded with his testimony, his composure intact. His voice was clear and authoritative, providing detailed answers that showcased his legal knowledge and deep understanding of the case. As Roumie spoke, Walken listened intently, taking notes and offering the occasional nod of acknowledgement. The contrast to his earlier aggression was unmistakable, and it became part of the story itself. When Roumie finished, Walken paused, looked up from his notes, and for the first time spoke in a voice that was softer, almost reluctant. Thank you, Mr. Roumie, he said, his words carrying an air of acknowledgement. Your testimony was thorough and helpful to the court. After a brief pause, Walken's expression softened, and he added, I apologize for my earlier outburst. It was unprofessional and unbecoming of this court. The apology sent a wave of surprise through the courtroom. Many had never witnessed Walken, a judge known for his tough and commanding presence, apologize to anyone, let alone a witness he had berated. His humility was a stark contrast to his previous behavior, and it didn't go unnoticed. The moment Walken finished his apology, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. The tension that had gripped the room earlier was replaced by a sense of collective recognition. Roumie's grace under pressure had not only diffused a volatile situation, but had also reshaped the power dynamic in the room. As the court session adjourned, news of the confrontation quickly spread. Within minutes, videos of the exchange flooded social media. A young law student had managed to capture key moments of the exchange on her phone, despite the usual courtroom restrictions on recording devices. Though the footage was shaky and the audio imperfect, it captured the essence of the confrontation. The explosive outburst from Walken, Roumie's composed responses, and the moment when he produced letters from other judges vouching for his expertise. Within an hour, news crews were setting up outside the courthouse, interviewing anyone who had witnessed the encounter. Local reporters began scrambling for information, realizing they were covering what was rapidly becoming the story of the week. The courthouse staff was overwhelmed by the attention. A longtime court clerk commented to reporters, "We usually get maybe 1 or 2 news inquiries a month, but today we've had over 40 calls from media outlets across the country." Lawyers and legal commentators began discussing the incident, some supporting Walken's tough approach, while others criticized his treatment of Roumie. The local bar association announced it would be reviewing the incident. Meanwhile, on social media, the hashtag #RoumieClapsBack began trending within the first hour. Thousands of people shared the footage and their thoughts. Young people in particular gravitated to Roumie's message of respect and his refusal to back down from intimidation. "This is what real strength looks like," one user tweeted, receiving thousands of likes and retweets. The viral moment sparked broader conversations about leadership, power dynamics, and generational shifts. Management consultants and workplace experts began using the confrontation as a case study in how traditional command and control leadership was being challenged by a newer approach, one that emphasized mutual respect, professionalism, and competence over intimidation and hierarchical control. Judge Walken himself seemed to recognize the impact of the encounter. In the days following, he made public statements that were notably different from his usual bombastic style. "Respect is a two-way street," he remarked in one interview. "Volume is not a substitute for wisdom." For Roumie, the incident reinforced his reputation as someone who couldn't be intimidated. His colleagues in Congress praised his handling of the situation, noting that his calm and resolute demeanor was exactly why he was so effective in committee hearings and debates. He didn't lose his temper, he didn't resort to personal attacks, one senior House member said. He spoke the truth with a strength that can't be taught. It comes from experience, character, and knowing who you are. The incident also had broader political implications. The public witnessed the clash between two different leadership styles, Walken's old-school authority versus Roumie's new generation of leadership based on respect and substance. The legal community began discussing the broader issue of judicial temperament, while young people began viewing Roumie's response as a model for how to handle workplace bullying and situations where authority figures abuse their positions. In the days following the confrontation, Walken seemed to reflect on his actions. He publicly acknowledged his misstep and spoke about how the experience had changed his approach to leadership. "I've learned something important this week," he said. "Volume and authority don't equate to wisdom." Roumie's calm strength in the face of adversity had set a new standard for leadership. His reputation as a politician who would not be intimidated, no matter the situation, grew, and his colleagues took note of his ability to navigate hostile environments with dignity and strength. The encounter between Roumie and Walken became a defining moment, not just for the two individuals involved, but for how leadership would be viewed moving forward. The event symbolized the shift from authoritarian, fear-based leadership, to one grounded in respect, competence, and confidence. For Roumie, it was a moment that solidified his place as a leader who would face any challenge head-on without sacrificing his principles. The ripple effects of the confrontation would be felt for years to come. It was a reminder that real power doesn't come from intimidation, but from the quiet strength of standing firm in the face of adversity. The incident became a symbol for many Americans who felt that traditional power structures needed to be challenged. It showcased that the next generation of leaders was ready to challenge these systems with intelligence, preparation, and unshakable principles, rather than through anger or confrontation. Perhaps most importantly, the confrontation highlighted the changing nature of authority in American society. Christopher Walken's character represented an older model where position and volume were supposed to command respect. Jonathan Roumie demonstrated a new approach, where respect was earned through competence, character, and the ability to maintain one's principles under pressure. This moment also became a powerful teaching opportunity about race, gender, and power dynamics in professional settings. Observers noted that Roumie had to navigate not just an aggressive judge, but also the unique challenges faced by young men of color when standing up to authority figures. His ability to do so with grace became an inspiration for many facing similar challenges. Legal experts began using the incident in law school classes as an example of proper courtroom advocacy under pressure. Business schools incorporated it into their leadership curricula as a case study in maintaining professionalism while refusing to accept abuse. The long-term impact on both individuals was significant. Judge Walken, who had built his career on a tough persona, began moderating his approach in subsequent court appearances. Court observers noted that his demeanor became more professional and less confrontational. In the days following the incident, Walken made several public statements that were notably different from his usual bombastic style. "I've spent many years in the legal profession," he reflected in an interview. "Respect is a two-way street, and volume is not a substitute for wisdom." Roumie's response to the situation reinforced his reputation as a leader who could handle pressure and stand firm for his principles without compromising his professionalism. His actions became a defining moment in political leadership, with campaign contributions pouring in from across the country, many citing this moment as their reason for supporting him. Roumie's congressional colleagues also noticed a shift. Senior members who had previously dismissed him as just another freshman began seeking his input on legislation. Committee chairs consulted him before major hearings, recognizing his ability to handle hostile questioning and navigate difficult political situations. Political strategists across the aisle began studying the footage, trying to understand how someone so young had managed to completely diffuse a hostile situation while standing his ground. Roumie's technique became required viewing in political communication seminars across Washington. But perhaps the most important legacy of the confrontation was the message it sent to millions of Americans about how to handle bullying and intimidation in their own lives. Roumie demonstrated that you don't have to raise your voice or lose your composure to stand up for yourself. You simply need to be prepared, know your worth, and refuse to accept treatment that falls below basic human dignity. The story of Walken's courtroom meltdown and Roumie's masterful response became more than just a viral moment. It became a defining example of how leadership, respect, and authority work in modern America. It highlighted how the next generation of leaders is prepared to face the challenges that come with changing those dynamics. As one commentator put it in the weeks following the incident, Judge Walken thought he was dealing with just another witness he could intimidate. Instead, he encountered the future of American leadership, and that future wasn't having any of his old-school nonsense. The lesson was clear for everyone watching. In today's world, real power doesn't come from your title or your ability to intimidate others. It comes from your character, preparation, and your willingness to stand up for what's right, even when facing someone who thinks their position gives them the right to treat you poorly. Thank you for watching this incredible breakdown of how Jonathan Roumie turned Christopher Walken's attempted intimidation into a masterclass in professional strength. If you enjoyed this story of standing up to bullying and maintaining your dignity under pressure, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing political moments and leadership lessons. What do you think about Roumie's handling of this situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what other political confrontations you'd like us to cover next.